Hi, and thank you for joining today's session on the value of speech analytics and voice AI for ServiceNow. Most importantly, how it can help optimize customer engagements as well as improve overall agent performance. My name is Guillaume, and I will be your host for today's session. And it is my pleasure to have you join us today. A couple quick housekeeping items. Please keep in mind that some of what we might cover could be forward-looking in nature. Simply ask that you take that into consideration throughout the duration of today's session. But with that, let's get started. So an interesting point or data point with which to start with is, look, voice channel remains truly valuable to the overall customer service value chain. In fact, while a lot of organizations will openly admit that most of their customer inquiries may originate or start in digital channels or mediums, for example, email, chat, self-service, and the like, majority will tell you that frequently those customer engagements will often escalate to a live customer service agent, very often over the traditional phone channel. So again, voice remains a key part of any successful customer service operations. What's interesting is that most will also admit that mix of self-service and voice and digital channels is not likely to change anytime soon. In fact, only 6% of organizations think that in the future, so let's say 2025, only 6% actually believe that the majority of the inquiries they field today are actually going to be truly or 100% addressed in self-service mediums. So the majority, right, well over 90% of organizations out there are, for all intents and purposes, admitting that self-service and digital transformation, digital channels are important, but voice will still remain part of the equation. And so it begs the question, how can we optimize voice, and how can we make sure we have the analytics to make sure that if it is meant to be over time, that channel for escalations and only complex inquiries or time-sensitive requests, how do we make sure that you have the analytics to really understand what is the quality of those customer engagements? And to help us today is Rachel Brown. Rachel Brown is a senior account manager as well as the sentiment analyst specialist here at 3CLogic. She has over 13 years of customer service experience and is also trained specifically in all things AI and speech analytics, in addition to being a 2-year veteran of the ServiceNow ecosystem. Rachel, good to have you.
Thanks, G. I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah, so let's continue this conversation here a little bit. A lot of individuals think that voice is really a generation-based channel, right? The older you are, the more likely you're to call an organization, right? And the younger you are, the more likely you are to choose to use digital channels, self-service, as an alternative means to get whatever it is that you want solved or addressed. And yet, studies will show that 66% of millennials are actually open or likely to contact an organization over the voice channel, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, when you look at how much analysis goes into those voice engagements, organizations, majority of time, will look to analyze less than 3% of the engagements that they field over the voice channel. So obviously a very, very small sample size, which presumably could explain why customers, only 11%, when you survey them, think that customers actually care about their feedback. But ultimately, you and I both know it's not that organizations don't care about understanding how healthy the engagements are between their agents and their end customers. It's very often an issue of scalability, right, Rachel?
Absolutely. So a lot of times supervisors or any type of quality assurance manager, they just don't have the time, effort, and labor to go ahead and look into these types of calls. And what really suffers is the customer experience. So they don't have the capacity, they don't have the sustainability, and they don't have the scale to be able to listen to every single call coming in. And that's where the issue lies.
And of course, then that means that there may be a lot of engagements that they should be aware of, that they potentially would want to contribute or lend assistance to, that really go, missing or sort of, unnoticed, perhaps only until or up until the point it's been escalated enough that where the customer has screamed loud enough that it's now become a larger problem, right?
Exactly. It's gotten to the boiling point where it's a major issue within an organization.
So I think one of the things you wanted to showcase really live is an example of how, if you bring together speech analytics with 3CLogic, and more importantly, in the context of ServiceNow, right? So if 3CLogic is that interaction layer that fields those voice conversations, how can we use what ServiceNow is best known for, which is to drive action and use workflow? I think you wanted to showcase an example of where we can help solve together some of these challenges.
Absolutely. And that's a great point, G. And obviously, today, if organizations are utilizing ServiceNow, they understand the value of having a telephony component to complement their ServiceNow digital channels. So imagine this, a call comes in, it goes through an IVR, it hits an agent, use it via, a CTI, which in this case, we're using 3CLogic CTI. A conversation was had, a call was recorded. So one of the issues that we see is because of that call, it's really hard for supervisors to get an accurate understanding of the customer experience because today supervisors are relying on either agent notes or listening to that full call recording. And as we had just talked about, it takes a lot of time and effort. It's very manual and it's a pretty labor intensive process. So that's really where speech analytics and AI is going to come into play. So what I really want to show you is a live example. So G, you're going to play the role of the agent here and I'll be the supervisor. So on my screen, you can see here that I have a contact, John Smith, and he's a VIP customer of ours. He's very important to us. And say I want to spot check some of the cases that he has with our organization and see how my agents did with them. So in this particular use case, I'm going to look at this case that came in. And if I'm taking a look here, I can see that John Smith had called in about his Google Droid Razor Max. And G, you're the one that actually took the call. And the reason why he was calling in was because there's performance issues. And those could be, maybe it's an older version of a phone, maybe the battery is dying, maybe, his apps are loading very slowly. But the end result is that he needs to order a new cell phone. So for face value, if I'm a supervisor looking at this call, it just looks like any other normal case that comes in. But if I take a look at the phone logs and actually view the call attributes and the call transcription, I can see here that this call really had some boiling points. So not only was the agent showing empathy during the call, but there was also a supervisor escalation and negative customer sentiment. Now, to me as a supervisor, I want to dig a little bit deeper and see exactly what happened and how this call got to that escalation point and why. So what I actually went into is an actual full transcription and audio of that particular call. I can see where the agent spoke, where the customer spoke, the full transcription broken down. And I can easily go to exactly where that supervisor escalation happened in just a few clicks here. So it's a huge time-saving effort from a supervisor perspective to actually figure out what exactly happened and where they need to take action, whether it's with the agent or if they have to reach out to the customer to do some type of advocacy.
So this makes a ton of sense, right? So what I see having been solved already is the fact that this is transcribing and analyzing all the conversations. So now we're addressing not just the 3%, but the remaining 97% that to some of the earlier data points we shared, for all intents and purposes, usually just remain sort of hidden in the background. So now you're bubbling all that information, all that data up to the top. You're obviously making it really easy to data mine it. But circle back, bring that back into the context of ServiceNow. So I have the analysis. Where do we connect the dots here, and how does that drive value?
Well, we know that ServiceNow is all about workflows, right? So what you can actually do with this data now that you can have it is you can drive actionable inserts using actionable alerts using ServiceNow's Flow Designer. So once that sentiment is posted for each call, the supervisor, ServiceNow admin can actually create automated tasks and trigger workflows that can go directly to the inbox of that supervisor, quite frankly, very easily. So in this particular case, you can see here that the workflow that was created within ServiceNow was that any negative moments that are detective and there's negative customer sentiment, and specifically around, John Smith, because we know he's a VIP, two things will happen. A task is created to submit a supervisor or to submit an evaluation form regarding the agent who took the call, and to create a coaching session with the agent regarding the call as well. So now you're automating this entire process to just get to the calls that need your attention and, quite frankly, deserve your attention.
Right. So now you've solved the issue with scale, and now you've also automated and created an action based on those data points that are deserving of your attention. So now I'm not necessarily fishing randomly in a huge pool of calls to stumble across the occasional one that is deserving of my attention as a supervisor. But now instead, the system is doing all that work for me and simply presenting, and through the help of ServiceNow, automating the escalation process, really. And then it's for me as a supervisor to determine where do I want to lend value, right? So you mentioned one of the options was agent coaching. So how would that work then?
Absolutely. So let's look at the task that I have as a supervisor, right? So I can see that those two tasks are now directly in my inbox. What's great about this is once you go in, you can see that the negative sentiment was detected. If I want to actually view the call log, again, it's right within ServiceNow. If I want to view all of the call attributes and just verify that there was negative customer sentiment, I can do that. And then I can go back into that advanced analytics screen. And what this is going to show you is the recording, the transcription, and now you have an evaluation form all right within one view. So what's great about this is now you can go through and do an evaluation really quickly. And what this is also impactful for is agent performance, right? It gives you the availability to identify and train agents in a more timely and effective way and find relevant coaching opportunities. And this is especially critical right now, given the fact that agents are really the face of your organization while everyone's really at home. So this can solve for the fact that you may not have that opportunity to do face-to-face coaching or walk around on the shop floor and listen to calls as you would in the past. So it's really ensuring that your agents are providing a high level experience to the customer calling in, and then make sure that either, they're following the opening and closing scripts that you provide, following call procedures, making sure that the tone with the customer is correct, or making sure that they're asking the proper questions. Certainly all different and variations of ways that you can basically train an agent.
Yeah, and you raise a really important point there, right? So at the end of the day, one of the things that everyone's wrangling with is the fact that, these were already issues before this whole movement towards work from home, right? So at least back in the day, everyone was working, or all the agents were working out of the same building. As a supervisor, I could walk the floor and I could spot check, at least visually, if and when there might be an opportunity for me to intervene or coach an agent. But now everyone's working out of their living room, right? Or at least somewhere within their house. So one of the additional challenges now is that you actually lost part, or one of the things that people typically relied on to support their agents and make sure that the customer engagement and the overall service was at a certain level. So applying this type of tool actually sort of makes up for that right now. Even though everyone might be geographically distributed within your operations, you still know what's going on in near real time. And most importantly, the events that require your input, or at least awareness, are automatically going to bubble up and flag up to you. It's all really, really cool stuff. So look, in the interest of time, I'm curious, Rachel, if you had to take, if our audience was to sort of have some key takeaways, what are some of the things that you would specifically highlight?
Well, I think, today voice is still going to be a key part of that customer experience, right? Certainly, digital channels do serve a purpose, but for those more complex issues, voice is still going to be key to making sure that the customer gets their problem solved and they get the problem solved quickly.
Okay, what next?
Obviously, with the addition of speech analytics and AI, what it's going to help organizations do is scale their organization and be able to hear 100% of the calls coming in. And what it's also going to do is it's going to lend automation to their day-to-day work, which will help, with things like productivity, efficiency, visibility into their call centers.
And then, of course, there's the added benefit of what we sort of highlighted with ServiceNow, right?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, ServiceNow is always going to be the single source of truth. So whatever you can enrich into ServiceNow, those data points, and then drive those actionable, alerts and tasks to basically automate that process. It's not only going to give better productivity to these supervisors, but you now have that holistic view of the call center. You can be more proactive versus reactive and find those better, easier ways to manage the calls that, need your attention and deserve your attention. and give the best possible experience to customers that are calling in.
And of course, you're bringing in that data into ServiceNow so that it sits side by side with the digital channels and self-service offerings that ServiceNow obviously provides natively out of its platform. And so you've got that single system of truth, system of action, as ServiceNow would put it. So obviously, it's going to extend any existing or future investment that you might put into the ServiceNow platform as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome stuff, Rachel. Well, look, for our audience, if you haven't guessed it, I mean, 3CLogic, in terms of what we provide in this entire equation, is we are the voice-enabled platform that helps facilitate some of the things that Rachel shared. If you have any interest in understanding how this might fit into your operations and where this might lend value, please bear in mind that when it comes to ServiceNow, that's certainly our one of our areas of expertise as one of the leading integration and applications on the ServiceNow store, and with ServiceNow deployments, including with this similar type use case with customers all over the world. So if you have any questions, we certainly welcome your outreach. You can reach us at info@3clogic.com. Again, that's info@3clogic.com. Love to organize a chance to sit down with you and explore how this and some of the other services that 3CLogic provides, both independently and in the context of ServiceNow, might potentially be of value to you. With that, it's my pleasure to sign off. Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time to share a little bit of your insights, and to our audience, we hope to talk with you again soon.